Hello everyone! So I thought today I would start what I'm hoping is going to be a multi-video series. I'm going to unoriginally call it Cosette's Book Corner. I'm going to be talking about recent books that I have read and what I liked and didn't like about them. So today we're going to be talking about Towering. It's the modern retelling of Rapunzel by Alex Flynn. My very close friends know that I adore Alex Flynn's books. I really enjoyed Beastly, and I really liked A Kiss in Time. Cloaked, I know, has a little bit of a mixed bag going on, considering that it has 3 different fairy tale mythos involved, and I do know that some people didn't really enjoy it, but overall I thought it was a very solid read, and I ended up liking it okay. Towering actually marks the first time that I can confidently say that I didn't like an Alex Flynn book. And I do feel bad about that because Rapunzel has always been one of my favorite fairy tales. And I was excited to see what she would come up with, especially since the most popular version of Rapunzel in recent years has been the Disney movie Tangled. And I would argue another close contender would be the 3rd book in the Lunar Chronicles, Cress. So the story of Towering is about a girl named Rachel. Rachel lives in a tower and is visited by an old woman that she refers to as Mama. Her only company besides this mother figure are classic literature and the view of the woods outside her tower. Apparently no one has found this tower in the 7 or 8 years that she has been kept here. I don't know how that works. I was willing to grudgingly overlook it because Alex Flynn is usually very good about mixing real-world elements with fantasy, and I was thinking she would have an explanation for this. Spoiler alert, she doesn't. Our other protagonist is named Wyatt. He is a high schooler and he is currently living with Mrs. Greenwood, and she is the mother of one of his mom's friends from the past, whose name is Danielle. Mrs. Greenwood lives in a small New York town by herself. She watches a lot of Star Trek, and she dearly misses her daughter, who apparently has disappeared. Wyatt is a very sullen teen. The reader spends the most time reading the book through Wyatt's perspective, and while he's not an awful person, there isn't really anything that really jumps out about him. He's just a regular teenager who just happens to have lost 2 of his very close friends to tragic circumstances that he feels responsible for. So when he is living with Mrs. Greenwood and he somehow hears this beautiful singing in the distance when no one else can hear it, he feels that he needs to investigate this and be proactive because it might mean that somebody needs his help. And then he meets Rachel, and it's love at first sight, and of course he wants to save her, but she says no. I need to stay in my tower because I feel like there is something that I need to do. I need to save people. And this is where the book starts to get a little messy. Overall, I thought the characterization was fine. Mrs. Greenwood was, you know, your typical old lady. I did appreciate the fact that she had a crush on William Shatner. I thought that was kind of cute. Again, Wyatt was just, you know, average teenage boy. Rachel was a little odd. I did find her somewhat charming, considering the fact that her only knowledge of the outside world was through books like Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights. But at the same time, it did feel a little odd that Mama didn't bring her things that were a bit more recent, and that she didn't wear any other clothing other than dresses. I mean, coming from somebody who wears dresses about 98% of the time, I do own other clothing, like, you know, pajamas, and it didn't seem like Rachel had anything like that. Most of the other characters were not really characters, I would say. They were more there for plot convenience or be loose threads in this whole mystery that surrounds this entire story. But I didn't hate anybody. They were just the friend with the exposition, the old man who's kind of crazy, the creepy dudes who seem like they know more than they're letting on. They just all seemed like they were just very cut and dry, and I mean, it didn't bother me too much. that's about all that I can say that I liked about this book, because there wasn't much else that I really liked. I think I should start with the fact that Wyatt and Rachel can telepathically communicate with each other. I don't mind that people can do so in stories that are obviously not taking place in an entirely realistic world. There needs to be an explanation as to why this is happening. And honestly, it's never explained. Or I should say that it is explained, but at the end of the book, it just kind of rushes through that explanation, and it's just like, oh, well, the ghost of Rachel's mother, who, spoiler alert, is Danielle, making her Mrs. Greenwood's granddaughter. The ghost of Danielle decided that Rachel and Wyatt should be together, so now they can just magically talk to each other. Magic! And you need to accept that. Usually, she doesn't really need to explain why things are the way they are. Usually, it's just very seamless the way that the fairy tale elements blend in with our world. But this time, it felt like I did need an explanation for why they're magically able to hear each other at random times when they're talking out loud or singing out loud, because it was just too distracting. I should also mention that Rachel has hair that grows inconsistently, I should say. She gets superhuman strength like Samson from the Bible when her hair grows, but it only grows at certain points, and it again was never really explained why it was growing. It just did. Accept it. I think the one thing that I was willing to accept was her healing tears. I mean, I have seen a few reviews saying that Miss Flynn stole that from Tangled, and no, she didn't. The healing tears were in the original Rapunzel tale, if you remember. At least in here it was explained that she has always been able to heal wounds with her tears. It's never explained how she got this ability, but she just magically can. Accept it. That's where one of the big problems comes in, is that I, as a reader, am just supposed to accept a lot of the stuff that goes on in this world, and I just can't. There's no rhyme or reason for it, because the rules of this universe have not been established. Another thing that really bothered me was the fact that Rachel and Wyatt fell in love much too quickly. I understand that this is a retelling of a fairy tale, and love in any sort of fairy tale, Disney or not, is going to be a little rushed because it's a trait that comes with the territory, I suppose. But this was just absolutely ridiculous. They meet twice and all of a sudden they're saying I love you when they hardly spent any time together. And I do realize again that this is supposed to be a modern retelling of a fairy tale, but it is also adhering to the rules of the real world, even though both Wyatt and Rachel verbally and mentally admit that they don't know each other very well and they shouldn't be saying it. They still love each other anyway, so it's okay. No, it's not. I, as a reader, thought that it was very cheap and very, very shallow. I could believe that they were in the process of getting to know each other, because I know that Wyatt thinks that Rachel is a very ethereal being, and I know that Rachel thinks that Wyatt is very attractive. I would imagine so, considering she hasn't seen anyone but this old lady who visits her for how many years. But I mean, Wyatt is, he's a young guy, he's probably attractive enough. Here they just make some snow angels and she rescues him from drowning in a lake, and all of a sudden, I've seen you in dreams and I love you somehow. That doesn't happen, not even in fairy tales. The whole mystery in this book is basically surrounding this plant called Rhapsody. It's the stand-in for the Rampion plant in the original fairy tale. And this plant is a drug and hypnotizes people, and so these two brothers are the heads of this underground drug ring and enslave people to keep growing this plant. And why are they doing this again? It wasn't explained very well why they're doing this. We're doing it to be evil. Their nephew, Zach, who is the father of Rachel knew that something had to be done to stop his uncles from kidnapping all these people and enslaving them to keep growing this drug. And there was this slapped together prophecy that this child of Danielle will save everybody from this plant. So Zach willingly goes to see Danielle and seduces her and then just leaves her so that she becomes pregnant with Rachel, and so Rachel can save everybody with her healing tears and her magically growing hair. What? This makes no sense and is just, it's stupid. I don't know where this prophecy came from. It makes no sense. But I do like the fact that Rachel is the one to save the day at the end, and that's really all I can say about that. She cries on the pipe that is keeping this rhapsody watered, and once the pipe is cried on, it stops flowing water to the plants and they die. I am sorry. Just the fact that I am saying this out loud makes me sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, and honestly, that's what I felt like when I was reading this book. Overall, this story was just a huge mess. I wanted to actually know more about Danielle's life because about the first third of the book was told in 3 perspectives, which were Rachel, Wyatt, and excerpts from Danielle's diary. But since that diary was so short, there were only about 3 or 4 chapters that were from her perspective before they just cut off and ended. And it was just very awkward and jarring for me. I was hoping that I could know a little bit more about her life, considering that at the end of the book we realize that she is no longer living, and the fact that she is a ghost who is orchestrating all of this because she also somehow knows that her daughter is meant to save all these people. Where did this prophecy come from? Was it written in stone? Was it just scribbled on a napkin? Like, where? Where did it come from? Please tell me. Somebody tell me where this prophecy came from. Goodness. So overall, it just wasn't a very good book. I mean, Alex Flint is a very talented writer, and obviously it's a readable book. There's too many questions, and there's just too much confusion in it that I feel like a lot of readers will enjoy it. And I thought I was alone in this, but looking on Goodreads, it seems that I was not the only one disappointed in this. So honestly, I would say give it a pass, but please check out Beastly, A Kiss in Time, or Cloaked. Those are all great books. Or I would also suggest The Lunar Chronicles. Those are also a great modern retelling of several different fairy tales, including Rapunzel. I suppose this is it, and I will see all of you in the next video. Have a nice day, guys!